my name is Lori. My nickname is Rorini, and I'd like to welcome you to Rorini Bobini Creations. If this is the first time you stop by to check out my channel, welcome. I do hope you like what you see. If you do, please give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing and sharing with your fellow crafters. If you've been to see me before and you're back, I am so grateful that you are. And again, if you haven't already done so, I would love it if you'd subscribe to my channel and share it. So for today's craft, we're sticking kind of with that beachy nautical theme because I'm redoing my deck, and we're just doing a really simple tray. Don't need any special tools. It's really easy, and you can use the wood I used was all scrap, and it was free. So if you're looking for scrap wood, anybody that would get stuff on a pallet, usually you can get some scrap wood from there. You can go to your Home Depots, your Lowe's, often they have scrap bins there. So, or check in your stash at home. So we'll stop yakking at you and we'll get on with making the tray. Okay, so for today's project, we are going to make some really rustic trays. And I actually got this wood. This came from pallets from work, actually. And you can go to all kinds of, anywhere that gets pallets, they almost have, they're hoping you'll come and take them. There's so many of them. And these were actually for snowmobiles, so the wood was a little bit thinner than some of the other pallets. But go to any of those places and just check with them. And if you don't have to buy wood, don't buy wood. Use what you got or see what's in your garage stash. So these ones, just because I was working with what I had, they're about just over 18 inches. And I just cut enough, or I cut the, I guess you're gonna call them the legs, enough so that they go span across it. So that's what we're looking for. Now they're very rough right now. I am going to clean them up somewhat, but I do want them to still be kind of a little bit rough and rustic, not this rough and rustic, but you know, a little bit. But I'm going to sand them after I glue them together, and that'll help me get a fairly even height on them as well, because being that they're just rough pallet wood, oftentimes they're, you know, not quite flush or perfect. So if I glue them together first and then I go ahead and give them a good sanding, I'll get a more level finish when I'm done. So to glue them together, I am just going to use the Gorilla Glue, just the wood glue. And you can use any wood glue. I just got a really good deal on this, actually. It was on sale, and I love the water, the Gorilla Glue was the other one, so I was sure this would be great. So I'm just going to start by gluing the edges, and I'm going to put glue on both edges when I glue them together. And I'm just going to kind of pick what side I think I want to be up or down, and then I'll just simply, like I said, glue them together. And I'll probably push some tape or something along them just to help hold them in place while they're drying. So I'll go ahead and get started with that. Okay, so now that all my boards are good and glued together, I am going to sand it, and I am going to sand the legs at the same time before we put those on as well. So just going to take them out. I'm going to use a palm sander. I'm just not going to do it in here because of the dust, obviously. And I'm going to give it a good sanding until it's reasonably smooth, and then we'll come back to the next step. Alright, so it's all sanded now, both sides. And like I said, I wanted it smooth, not splintery, but it wasn't looking for perfection. I wanted it kind of rough, and it looks like it's been around a while and it's got some imperfections. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a coat of this beautiful aqua. And And this does not have to be a perfect coat because we're going to layer our paint and do the weathered look by sanding through the different layers. So I'm just gonna use one like that there. So I'm just gonna give it a good, a decent coat, a decent coverage, but like I said, doesn't have to be perfect. And then when it's dry, I'm gonna go back in and do the same thing with a white. And by doing that, when we come to the sanding part, we're going to have all the different shades kind of show through in different areas. So I've used this technique before. You may have seen it on some of my other projects. I'll just make sure this is good start. And this is a beautiful aqua. I don't think the camera does it justice. I actually got it as a mist tint. I'm not even sure where it was, one of the Home Depot, or maybe it would have been the Habitat for Humanity, I'm just not sure. But yeah, it's a beautiful color for anything if you're trying to do that sort of nautical, beachy feel. It's just a beautiful color for it. I'm just so glad I found it. I use it a lot now. Alright, so let's get started. And again, nothing special with the painting, just regular old paintbrush. I probably will use a sponge brush just because that's what I happen to have close by me. And just give it a good coat. So now that this is all dried, I'm going to do a coat of just white chalk paint over top. And again, nothing fancy to it, just, let me grab the right brush here. Just gonna go over, and again, doesn't have to be perfect coverage because we are going to distress it, but you want, decent coverage, I guess. But we are looking for that real rustic, sort of been out in the weather look. So I'm going to do all sides, like I did with the blue, top, bottom, edges, and the legs as well. And then I'm going to let them all dry, and then we'll come back to the next step. So you should be left with this now. Sorry, I'm shaking things around. So it's had the base coat of the turquoise and then the top coat of the chalk paint, as well as the legs. Don't need to worry about the top part. So now, if you watched my other video that I did with the lantern, we're going to do the same technique. So now we're just going to sand it. And it doesn't really matter what grit, I don't even know what this is. This one's 120. I used 80 on the other one just because it was handy. So it doesn't really, that's not a huge thing. Just whatever you have in your stash or on hand. And you're just going to sand any edges, like sometimes when you put paint on where they'll swell up a bit and they'll become, because we want it rustic but not prickly, right, obviously. So you're going to sand those spots, and then you're just going to distress it as much or as little as you want. And there's no right or wrong way to do this. It's totally personal preference. I'm going to just get started in here, but I am going to take it outside because I don't want it to get dust all over my house. Just wherever you want that sanded look and want the other color of paint to come through, and go right down to the wood in some places if that's what appeals to you. Do that as well. So I am going to take it outside and do it. As I said, I don't have a very good way to use the camera out there right now. It's a bit windy. So I'll do it out there and I'll bring it back and show it to you. And again, it's not difficult at all. It's just totally personal preference. I'll show you the final results on the sanding when I get there. I'll be doing it to both of the legs as well. And then we will move on to the next step. So I do have a couple of other things we are going to do to this before we put it all together. So let me stop yakking and go get that done so we can keep going here. Okay, so this is the tray all sanded. I've wiped off any excess dust as much as possible. And so we're going to move on to the next step. Now for myself, I'm doing a nautical kind of a thing on my deck. So I just printed out, or sorry, cricketed out, I guess, this lighthouse stencil. Now you can get them just about anywhere. Any of the craft stores, the dollar store even has them sometimes. A great option is if you have kids with a coloring book. Coloring books, because they're so simple, the lines are so simple, make a great stencil. You can just trace them out on paper and then sort of with a box cutter or some other kind of knife, turn it into a stencil. If you don't have a Cricut, go on Pinterest. So in whatever decor sort of style you want. I'm just going to do the lighthouse because that's going to work for me. So I'm just going to place it on, and I want it off to the side. I'm not going to put it in the middle. I'm going to place it off to the side, and then I've got, again, choose the colors that work for your decor style. I've got some red going on too out on my deck. So I'm going to do the main part in the red. I'm going to incorporate a bit of black on the roof, I'm thinking, and then the blue for the water. And I did want to choose a different blue rather than the aqua just to make it stand out. So I'm going to do that by doing like a dry sponge technique. So we're going to need our paper towel again, just little old sponges. And I think I'll just start with the red. Now the red, I don't have much left, so I'm just going to get it right out of my lid. It's on my list to get some more of that color. And I'm just going to take off like most of the paint. So there's not much on because I don't want it to be too dark. And in fact, once it's on, I'm going to do the same sand technique over it just to make it sort of match. But so make sure it's, straight as you can. I think we'll be good there. And then very lightly, I don't want a ton of paint. I want it to be rather faded. Like I said, I'll probably still end up doing the sanding technique if it's too dark. I may have gone a bit too late here, but I'm just gonna lightly pounce it on. Now you can use, there's like the proper foam brushes. Sometimes I feel like I have more control with the little foams. You got too much on one edge there that can come off. You can also tape it down if you have a concern with it moving. I'm just gonna hold it for myself. Not sure why I'm getting these little blotches, but like I said, I'll be sanding that off after I apply. Maybe that'll take care of it. And it looks really faint when you're doing it, but actually when you pull the stencil away, you'll be surprised how much it does actually stand out. So you don't want to go heavy with the paint. And if you've taped it, if you want to do that and you're not quite sure how much paint you want, and you tape it, you can always sort of flip it carefully, and then you can pull it back down if you decide you want more than what's there. So definitely start light, because you can always add to it. I mean, I guess, like I said, we're going to sand it, so I guess if you got a little heavier handed than you were hoping, or whatever, you can just sand a couple layers off. So I thought I'd leave this little top part black, and I'm going to hopefully can do these little sections in the red. That's what I was thinking. Let's see how talented I am in these little spots. That's not bad, I guess. Alright, so we'll get our next sponge, and I'll go in with the black. Again, just going to take the majority of the paint off so it's quite faint. And we're just going to do this bit here. So there's our lighthouse. So like I said, I am going to go ahead and sand it off, but I am going to take a paintbrush and just sort of edge things. If you aren't comfortable using a paintbrush, you can certainly use Sharpie markers, would work just fine. I do quite a bit of painting, so I'm fairly comfortable using a fine brush to do that. Now because I said that, or because I'm recording, I'm going to make enough of it. That's kind of the way it goes, but... And then I'm still going to end up sanding, so my line when I first painted on here is going to seem quite bold and harsh, but once we sand it down it won't be so bad. So if you do want to do a brush, I'll show you a technique. So you get water on your brush. Now you want some off but not all. You don't want the drip. One thing to watch for too is when you drip it, oh, it's my biggest pet peeve, when you get a water droplet. So when you do this, then it runs down the brush and makes a mess. That drives me nuts, so do watch for that. You're going to dip your brush in the paint, and then just along the side, do one drag. Makes a nice point, takes off any excess, and then just follow your lines. Okay, so that's what it looks like all traced in. Like I said, the lines and the colors are a bit harsher than I want, so I am going to just pop outside, go over it lightly with some sandpaper, soften it up, blend it in a bit better, so it kind of matches the rest of the tray, and then we'll be back and put the whole thing together. Okay, so there it is. I've sanded it down and smoothed it off, so it's quite, I mean, you can definitely see it, but it's kind of faint and faded like the rest of the tray will be. So now we're going to put the legs on. So we're going to take the side, well, I forgot I didn't need to paint the one side, so that one got a little paint, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to use just wood glue on it. I'm not even going to screw it because the wood glue is going to hold it for what we're doing just fine. So just, now I have put little pads on the bottom just to keep it from scratching. You can just put some felt on there, or if you're not concerned about it, you can leave it alone. So I'm going to go in about, I want to say probably about 2 inches. Where is my measuring tape? Way over there. One moment here. Because once the legs are glued on, I'm going to give it a good coat of varnish, a finish. Actually, I think I'm going to make it 3 inches because I am going to use nautical rope to make the handle, and I'm going to want to do it near the edge. I'm going to drill holes to put the nautical rope, which I'll show you, but I do want to give myself enough room. So maybe we'll go 2.5, I think would be enough. I don't want them too far into the middle. So I'm just going to make a little mark. I'm so not organized at this moment. I was, and then I moved stuff around, and sorry. I'm just going to make a little mark there, and 2.5 there. And I'm going to go to the inside of that mark. Well, that doesn't seem right, does it? Done here. 2.5. Oh, I did 1.5, that's why. That's not right. So, actually, maybe I'll go to the inside. Let's just see what that'll leave me. Yep, going to the inside. Yep. So, I'm just going to glue them. Oh, I think I'll put them there. Like that. And flip it over once they're sort of glued and they're starting to stick, so the weight of the board helps keep it pressed down. But I think the wood glue is going to work just fine. I don't think we're going to have an issue with that. So I happen to have Gorilla Glue. I love my Gorilla Glue, and it came with on sale at Michael's. I got a really good deal on it, but I cannot. I glued the thing shut. I can't open the top anymore. It's been driving me nuts trying. So I'm just going to do it like this with a paintbrush. I'm just going to dip it right in there, and I'm going to be really generous with it. Really give it a good coating. Now you can go ahead and nail or screw it if you want to. I don't want that on the top side of mine. I think this will do the trick just fine, so I'm not going to bother with that, but you certainly could if you wanted to. It can even be quite decorative actually, especially on a rustic-y piece. So even, I'll just do a quick check to make sure we're pretty close. Oh. And I am going to let this dry overnight before I put a varnish on it. I'm going to go with a matte finish, but you of course are welcome to do whatever suits you. But I just want that matte age. I don't want it to look like it's shiny and new. I'm kind of gone to great lengths to make sure it doesn't look like that, so I'm not going to want to use the shiny stuff on it. And then all we'll have left to do is put on our handles, and as I mentioned, I'm going to use nautical rope to do that. So after this is dried overnight, I will come back and we'll do that last finishing step on there. Alright, we're gonna let her dry. Alright, so to finish our little tray, I'm going to use this rope as handles. So I'm going to go to the second board in on each side. And I'm going to go about 1.5 inches in. Now we don't want to end up where the feet are. So I'm just going to measure 1.5, which will be just about right. And then I'll just do halfway between the board, and I think that will be about 2 inches. So if we go 1, yep, we're right about where we want to be. And so I'm going to do that all the way around. So now I'm just going to take my drill and drill some holes exactly where I had them there. There's our 4 holes drilled. I'm going to decide how long I want my tray, and then I've just got the tape around the end to make it go through the hole easier. I'm going to tie a knot so it doesn't come through. And we can trim that bit off later if we want to. And this way I can decide how long I want my handle to be. So that's going to be more than long enough, but I'm going to give it a little extra so it's easier to tie the knot. Let's see if it goes through without the tape. No, we are going to get the tape. Don't ask me what I do with the cellophane tape. crafter's thing, right? We're always looking for the stuff we put down somewhere. This will work just fine. Maybe a little higher up. All right, let's see. That's about where I'm happy with it, so I'm just going to tie a knot. Let's just double check that before I cut my tail. Yep, that's about right, so I'll just cut my tails off. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. So there's our little nautical rusticy beachy tray all done. So let me go get you a picture of it where it belongs. So here is the final results, and I've got it with the lantern I did. It suits my decor perfectly. Love the color, love the way this turned out. I hope you guys liked it too. And thanks so much for watching.